Advanced cases of cyber-extortion against companies, types, investigation obstacles, and suggestions. The information systems, the Internet, and the services developed through it are now integral parts of the operation of the majority of enterprises worldwide. This automatically greatly expands the cybercriminal scope, who are able to adapt their weapons and business in the new digital environment. Even though the level of awareness of cyber threats has increased and law enforcement acts globally to combat them, illegal profits have reached amazing figures. The impact to society has become unsustainable considering the global economic crisis. Cybersecurity is often framed as a matter of keeping up with the rapid evolution of online attacks, patching software vulnerabilities, and identifying new malware programs. But cybercriminals' most crucial adaptation in recent years has not only to do with their technical tools or their business model. They have started selling stolen data back to its original owners. To keep cybercrime profitable, criminals needed to find a new cohort of potential buyers, and they did it. They found all of us. At the heart of this new business model for cybercrime is the fact that individuals and businesses are the ones footing the bill for data breaches. The types of online extortion that we are dealing with are considerably more complicated than the traditional blackmail in the real world. Extortion has a reputation of being an organized crime, but with the advent of cyber-extortion, the game is no longer just for the mafia. Such attacks could be perpetrated by as few as one person, which makes it all the more threatening. In particular, there are two major trends of the time on the cyber blackmail. On one side, we classify cases of malicious software such as ransomware or crypto-ware. As the name suggests, ransomware is a type of malware propagated via the traditional means, phishing emails, website drive-bys, or malvertising. Once the victim's device is infected, the ransomware begins to encrypt private files, and then pops up a message demanding a ransomware in exchange for the encryption key. A devastating case of ransomware was Crypto-Locker, where the attackers demanded payment of $300 in bitcoins within 3 days to not only decrypt the files, but to prevent them from being destroyed forever. Today, Loki ransomware seems to be on the top of the threats list. Within a company, if one computer on a network becomes infected, mapped network drives could also become infected. On the other side, we classify cases where cybercriminals require, through emails, large sums of money from the recipient firms. In case of non-compliance, the company is threatened to DDoS attack to its extrovert information systems, which could have a significant economic damage, depending of course on the intensity and frequency of the attack. It is unlikely that the use of DDoS for extortion is going to come to an end anytime soon. The tools needed to attack a company's site are cheap and easy to use. That attack that the company is being asked to spend, let's say, €5,000 to stop, probably only costs the attacker €40 an hour to launch, meaning every time a business pays, it's funding 150 hours of attacks on other targets. Paying attackers fuels their capabilities and makes it more likely they'll continue to attack business globally. There are two factors that have been vital in driving this rise in cyber-extortion. Firstly, there is more opportunity than ever for criminals to use cyber tools and techniques for extortion. As an ever-increasing volume of business is done online, the impact of a successful denial of service attack can have a much more significant business impact for a company. Moreover, many more business-critical systems are now connected to the Internet across all industries, from corporate data centers to industrial control systems. Any systems with Internet connectivity is potentially vulnerable to a denial of service attack, so the potential attack surface has increased massively. At the same time, ransomware has become more sophisticated. It is almost impossible to recover files encrypted with modern ransomware without the decryption key, and recent ransomware variants have been designed to cause as much damage as possible to potential victims by spreading internally within corporate networks. As opportunity to conduct cyber extortion has increased, the capability to mount such attacks has proliferated. The capabilities of top-end cybercriminals are now on a par with some nation-states, whilst further down the market the tools and expertise needed to plan, mount and monetize an extortive cyber attack are freely available on underground criminal forums, allowing less technically astute cybercriminals to learn new skills or buy in expertise. The criminal marketplace has now developed to such a degree that crimeware as a service enables non-technically capable criminals to contract out ransomware and DDoS attacks, with hacker-for-hire services also widely available. Probably there are two additional factors that are likely to have some level of impact on existing cybercriminals' diversification into extortion. Firstly, the market for stolen personal and card data is reaching saturation point, with individual sets of compromised credit card credentials available for as little as $1 per card. Secondly, extortion is a much leaner business model. Much of the effort in traditional bulk data theft is not expended stealing the data itself, but monetizing that data. In this scenario, criminals use the data to commit fraud themselves, requiring additional resource and effort, or sell it on to other criminals, potentially increasing the risk of law enforcement attention. Conversely, extortive attacks generate direct criminal profit through a ransom payment, which is usually made in a cryptocurrency. Interestingly, there are even indicators that cybercriminals are looking to maximize return on investment for extortive cybercrime by moving away from high-volume and low-value attacks, such as ransomware attacks against individual user systems, to low-volume and at the same time high-volume attacks, such as low-volume and high-value attacks, such as major denial-of-service attacks, attacks involving large data theft, or ransomware attacks targeted at corporate networks. In terms of punishing the perpetrators, they must first be identified and then arrested and brought before the judicial and prosecutorial authorities. However, cybercriminals exploit all those possibilities and opportunities offered by the internet to carry out their illegal acts, to remain anonymous and avoid any retribution. First of all, digital currencies. Bitcoin and similar currencies are anonymous and decentralized digital currencies that were designed to escape financial regulation. It's a concept that seems great in theory, but one major drawback to non-existent financial regulation is the difficulty of tracing and preventing financial crime. But there's another layer to it. Digital currencies have no barrier to entry. Anyone can set up a free Bitcoin wallet address without having to deal with bankers, proof of identity, or evidence of residence. In many cases, this convenience is desirable. However, in this particular case, it means that anyone can jump in on the cyber ransom game and cash out without much interference. All that being said, digital currencies themselves are not to blame. They can be used in legitimate ways for legitimate reasons. However, it cannot be denied that digital currencies design do make it much easier to carry out cybercrimes with far less risk than traditional tactics would entail. Then, cloud computing. Legitimate organizations across the globe have been migrating to the cloud in record numbers to take advantage of the cost savings, flexibility, and massive banks of computing power. Cybercriminals gain the same advantages, and they get something more: anonymity. By operating out of the cloud, they can avoid detection while gaining the advantages of global computing systems from which they can control operations, mount attacks, and store stolen data. The cloud offers criminals the platform they need to launch the type of large-scale, coordinated efforts that the Internet makes possible, providing the perfect venue for infiltrating other such venues. What's more, Dark Web. The Dark Web lets users access the Internet with complete anonymity. Volunteers around the world maintain a network of servers that route traffic while preventing IP addresses from being tracked. The servers hide user information and resist attempts at monitoring. Through the dark web, individuals can communicate online without being connected to their offline identities. The above-mentioned factors, when combined with the non-territorial limitation of cybercrime, the national borders of law enforcement agencies, and the infrastructure and data controlled by the private sector, can provide an explanation why it is so difficult to identify and arrest cybercriminals. One more issue that needs to be discussed has to do with legislation. Each country has its own laws regarding cybercriminality, personal data protection, confidentiality of communications, and data retention. When legislation is different, then cooperation between states is based on bilateral or multilateral agreements. Of course, cybercriminals are always far ahead from legal texts. Technology evolves much faster than legislation. Even the Budapest Convention of 2001, which was an innovative text at the time it was formulated and has been signed by several countries from Europe and the rest of the world, has not yet been ratified by all parties. Greece is now in the process of ratifying the convention, but how effective can it be after 15 years, after so many changes in the technological field? So, what can companies and enterprises do to prepare for this threat? Even the best defended organizations still get breached, so being ready to respond rapidly and decisively to an extortive attack is vitally important in responding effectively. The key elements of this approach are: first of all, understand the evolving cyber threats your organization faces at a granular level. Who is likely to target you? What would they attack, and what is their capability to do so? Have systems in place that allow you to detect attacks. Even if you cannot stop them, this allows you to get on the front foot in terms of response. Then ensure your critical data is regularly and securely backed up so you can restore from recent backups if hit with a ransomware attack. Ensure corporate response plans are fit for purpose for likely extortion scenarios. Ensure these plans are tested and exercised so they operate smoothly in a crisis. Do not deal with an extortive cyber attack as simply an IT incident. Ensure you manage the business crisis too. And then ensure that you are able to call on specialist extortive crisis response expertise in the event of a serious extortion. Another key consideration is whether you should pay a ransom to mitigate an extortive incident. There is no hard and fast rule here, and it will depend on a large number of factors including business criticality of the incident, ability to mitigate, legislation, and the actual case. Many individuals and organizations have paid ransomware groups for decryption keys and have successfully regained access to their files, but other groups have taken the money and run. Likewise, in a scenario where a group is offering to not attack your systems, how do you know a single payment will end the threat? Many organizations have paid ransoms only to find out that the criminals have returned with further ransom demands to stop denial of service attacks. Moreover, some cybercriminals claim to have advanced capabilities such as the ability to launch crippling DDoS attacks against organizations, which of course they do not actually have. So So before paying the ransom, take into consideration all the factors. Finally, it is sure that we need faster response from the part of those who legislate. Up-to-date legislation to include digital currencies and effective cooperation between law enforcement authorities of various states by giving extra powers to joint investigation teams are equally critical issues. It is worth mentioning at this stage the effectiveness of the Joint Cybercrime Action Task Force of the European Cybercrime Center, EC3 of Europol. It was launched on September 2014 as a response to further strengthen the fight against cybercrime in the European Union and beyond. The JCAT is composed of cyber liaison officers from committed and closely involved EU member states such as Austria, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands and the UK, non-EU law enforcement partners such as Colombia, Australia, Canada and the US, and European Cybercrime Center. All of them are located in one single office to ensure that they can communicate with each other in the most effective way. How does it work in practice? In order to actively fight cybercrime, the JCAT chooses and prioritizes the case to pursue. For that purpose, the different country liaison officers submit proposals on what could be investigated. The task force members then select the most relevant ones and proceed to share, collect, and enrich data. Then, they develop an action plan which is led by the country who submitted the chosen proposal. Finally, the JCAT goes through all the necessary steps to make the case ready for action, which includes involving judicial actors, identifying the required resources, and allocating responsibilities. On the screen you see a list of successful operations that took place since the beginning, the establishment of this JCAT Action Task Force. Cyber-extortion is rapidly becoming a permanent feature of the cybercrime landscape, and one that has the potential to affect any organization. Although all organizations are potentially vulnerable to cyber-extortion attacks, those that work on the basis that they are likely to be targeted at some point and adapt their mitigation techniques accordingly are much less likely to suffer significantly as a result of cyber attacks. Thank you for your attention.